Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Property Standards Committee and Committee Adjustment for December 17th, 2024. With us tonight are committee members in attendance is Kevin Antonitis, Danielle Collins, Fabia Billing, Dylan Bailey. Is Dylan online? Yes. Okay, Dylan. And myself, Adam Arnstead. Staff members present this evening are Walter Basic, Assistant Director of Planning, Henry Bose, Coordinator of Municipal Law Enforcement, Emily McNeil, Municipal Law Enforcement Officer, and Sarup Sandhu, Acting Administrative Coordinator. Live streaming. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are live streamed by the Town of Grimsby. Individuals and media may be audibly or visually recorded during this meeting. As a reminder, all electronic devices are to be in silent mode during our committee meeting. Do any members of the committee have a pecuniary interest with respect to the agenda this evening?
I do.
Okay, thank you. And
that's for the Property Standards Committee application or appeal. 4.1, I filed the notice with the Secretary Treasurer and the Clerk.
Okay, thank you. That's so noted. Anyone else? Seeing none, is there any request for withdrawal or adjournment? I believe there's none, correct? There's zero. Have committee members had the opportunity to review and the open and closed session minutes from November 20th, 2024? Is there any questions or comments about the minutes? If not, could I get a mover and seconder to approve them?
So moved.
Okay. Moved by Kevin, seconded by Dan. Any discussion? Therefore, the motion is resolved that the minutes of the meeting on November 2024 be approved. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Opposed, if any? That's carried. Okay, so we're going to move. First item on our agenda is the property standards appeal. If you want to depart, thank you. I will just notify you when we're ready. The appeal to be considered for the property known as Order 2024-560 for 1620 Ontario Street. Is the complainant present this evening? Mr. Russo? Okay, thank you. And is the appellant or agent here this evening?
I am here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'd like to call up Officer Emily McNeil, the Municipal Law Enforcement Officer for the Town of Grimsby, to introduce the appeal. If you please come to the podium. Good evening.
Good evening.
Officer McNeil, do you affirm that the evidence to be given by you relating to the matters in question between the parties to this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm.
Okay, thank you. Can you please present your evidence?
Through you, Mr. Chair. My name is, do you have it up? Oh, yeah, it is. My name is Emily McNeil, and I'm a Municipal Law Enforcement Officer for the Town of Grimsby. I'm appointed as a Property Standards Officer. You can go to the next slide. In late October of 2024, we received a complaint regarding a broken central heating boiler at 1620 Ontario Street in the unit occupied by the restaurant at the address. The complainant, the tenant of the restaurant unit, was concerned about the upcoming winter temperatures. On October 31st, 2024, I attended the restaurant at 1620 Ontario Street. Upon arriving at the property, I found that there was a large crack in the base of the central heating boiler in the basement, as seen in these photos. In these photos, you can see that the natural gas line has been disconnected. I was told by the complainant that there were no other sources of heat in the unit. Following my visit, the complainant provided me with the warning label completed by a TSSA certified gas technician. The label states that the central heating boiler was disconnected and shut off for being unsafe. I found the property to be in violation of sections 4.17.1 and 4.17.4 of the Town of Grimsby's Property Standards Bylaw, No. 1517. Section 4.17.1 requires that workplaces must be provided with a heating system capable of maintaining an adequate and suitable supply of heat. Section 4.17.4 states that said heating system shall be maintained in good working conditions so as to be capable of heating the building safely to the required standard. Based on my inspection at the restaurant and the gas technician warning label, I believe that 1620 Ontario Street was in violation of these sections. Upon review of the commercial lease agreement, we found that the landlord is responsible for supplying a functional heating system. I prepared Property Standards Order No. 2024-560 for 1620 Ontario Street. The order required the property owner to repair or replace the heating system to ensure an adequate supply of heat by November 25th, 2024, and to provide a temporary means of heating while the unit was being repaired or replaced. On November 6, 2024, I sent Property Standards Order No. 2024-560 to the 1620 Ontario Street property owner via registered mail. On that same day, I went to the restaurant and issued a copy of the order to an employee to give to the property owner. In summary, on October 31st, 2024, I attended the restaurant at 1620 Ontario Street to inspect the broken heating boiler in the unit. On November 6, 2024, I received a copy of the warning label for the boiler left by the inspecting gas technician. On that same day, I mailed Property Standards Order No. 2024-560 to the property owner and left a copy for them at the restaurant. On November 19, 2024, the property owner submitted a notice of appeal regarding Property Standards Order 2024-560. November 25th, 2024 was the original date that 1620 Ontario Street was required to comply with the order by. The committee has the option to either confirm the order, rescind the order, extend the compliance date for the order, or modify the order of set conditions. The town recommends that the committee confirms Property Standards Order No. 2024-560 as is, or extends the date for compliance of the order.
Okay, thank you very much. Does the complainant have any questions for town staff? If so, could you just come to the podium? Just questions for the staff. You'll have a separate presentation after. Okay, thank you. Does the appellant have any questions for Officer McNeil?
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question through you to the officer is, under your testimony, you indicated that this was a central heating system. Was the officer aware that it's not a central heating system? The individual units within the building have their own heating system, and this heating system is solely for the unit in question, Ogie Bistro?
Sorry, are you asking if I was aware that that heating unit is only for that unit?
Yes. It's just in your testimony, you called it a central heating system. It's not a central heating system. It's just for one unit within the building. And I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that at the time you issued the order.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
You say that you're aware of it now. I am aware of it. Were you aware of it at the time, that it did not heat the whole building?
Yes, I was.
My second question is, you indicate that you were mailed the warning label as part of the complainant's issue. The warning label was not provided to the landlord or as part of your order. Is it possible to get a copy of that warning label? It's not on the boiler system, which is a requirement under TSSA. So I guess my question through you, Mr. Chair, to the officer was the warning label on the system as required by TSSA, or was it provided to you after the fact?
At the time of my visit, I did not see the warning label. It was not mailed to me, but emailed to me later.
So at the time, your testimony was that there was no TSSA label on the boiler?
I did not see the label when I was there.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Sorry, Chair, not for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing that, you may step down. Okay, Mr. Russo, if you could come to the podium, please. Mr. Russo, do you affirm that the evidence to be given you in relating to the matters in question between the parties to the proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, thank you. Go ahead with your presentation.
On the week of October 21st, I wanted to open up my boiler like I do every year at that time. And I went down to do the necessary things like change the filter and bleed the lines so the boiler would work. And none of that worked, so I called my landlord. Landlord said he actually didn't answer me right away. I had to take it upon myself to call the service gentleman. So a service gentleman came in. As soon as he saw the boiler and the crack, he immediately cut it off, shut it off, and issued a TSSA ticket. He told me that he didn't have any tickets with him, but he would email me the actual ticket itself. So that's why there was no ticket there at the moment at the time. But I emailed it as soon as I received it. Sorry, I'm going to put on my glasses. He told me that it was dangerous, toxins and carbon monoxide was coming out of it, so at which point he needed to shut it off. So I contacted the landlord, and his response to me was check the Landlords and Tenants Act, and any further conversation that we're going to have is between our lawyers. Just cutting me off completely and leaving me alone to have a very cold restaurant and lose customers because people aren't coming in. The guy also told me that it was not a new break. It's an existing break that's been there because it's rusted since before I took over the place. So the thing was not working properly beforehand. The first year I moved in, I remember the landlord, Carl, brought in a couple of guys, father and son team that didn't show any credentials or anything. They came in and they did a makeshift fix, so it worked for me for a year. Then the following year, I just turned it on, did the necessary things, and it worked. And this year is when it stopped working because of that. So that's when I decided to call the Grimsby bylaw. They came in, and the young lady told you what she did and what she saw and what she issued. After that, I received an email from Carl introducing me to a new property manager that I was going to have, and I should deal with him only and further going, right? So this property manager's name is Greg Burnett. I get a phone call a few days later from one of my staff, one of my cooks in my kitchen, telling me that Tony Quirk, who is representing Carl, which, by the way, I have to say he has an invested interest in the building. He owns a mortgage that Carl owes to him. He shows up at my restaurant without me approving him coming there. No calls, no nothing. They came in, and Tony said to my chef said to him, you can't go downstairs without Pat here. And he said, I don't give a shit what Pat says, I'm going down there. So I showed up about 20 minutes later because I was shopping. I go downstairs, and Tony is very aggressive, abrasive, and sort of threatening. My chef was there. Greg Burnett was there. He literally told me that I should fix this thing on the illegal, okay? Get it done illegally, without any papers, without anything, so they could just pay for that and get it over with, and I should have done that from the very beginning. That's what he told me. I refused to have anything done illegally. I says, this has something to do with my customers, my staff, it's very dangerous, I would never do anything illegal. So that's when I refused, and I didn't hear anything anymore from Tony after that. So while they were down there, before I arrived, without any invitation, and not knowing they were walking around, and when I got there that evening, my chef says, listen, there's a big puddle of water here. So there was water everywhere, and we had to clean that up. They also told me that they had no hot water. And I said, well, I don't understand how we don't have hot water. So I checked my cameras. Upon checking my cameras, I saw Greg, the property manager, I don't know whose direction he took, walked around the boiler, shut off my valve, and shut off my hot water tank. So I had my hot water guy in the morning tell me to follow it and open it up. He says, Pat, it's been shut off. It's been shut off on purpose. No, you can't just, it doesn't just shut off on its own. It's not a protection thing. It's just somebody did it. and I have it on camera, and I've seen it, and I approached, and I called Greg, and he says, I'm sorry, I didn't know that was that. I thought it had to do something with the boiler, so he made something story up, okay? I then, after this appeal went in, after the 25th, I get a phone call from Greg, who is now my property manager, telling me that Carl, my landlord, is willing to split the cost with me of repairing, or not repairing because it can't be repaired, of replacing the system. And they came up with some idea to put in some, geez, I forget what it's called, but it's an inferior system because they wanted to put a 1.5 ton unit in there to replace my air conditioner and my boiler, which would give me heat in the winter and air conditioning in the summer. I then investigated because now I'm trying to get smart about it and educate myself. And I called 3 different people that told me that 1.5 ton is not going to cover anything in that restaurant. It's 1,800 square feet. And this is the reason why they wanted me to do it, because he would suffice his contract with me on my lease saying that he provided me with heat. I haven't heard anything from them. I had my own people quote, which quoted 3 times the price that they did. He wanted me to pay for half of whatever he said that he was going to do. And I haven't had this conversation with him since that. I have had to, he hasn't even provided me with any source of heat in the restaurant at all. I've had to put in my own heating systems like, whatchamacallit, electric heaters and whatnot, plugs to plug them in. I brought this with me because it's caused fires in my restaurant, okay, because of it. Finding that out, which I've called the electrical authority, I've been told that the electrical panel is inferior and it should be changed completely to 100 amp as opposed to a 60 because I'm running way too many things. I also have another electrical panel in one of the other buildings in 20, which I have no access to because he took my key. So if my if my stoves go down, I can't access that. So now electrical is no good. There's so many different things in this place is no good that are no good that need to be done and need to be replaced. And I don't know if it's Tony advising him these things or not, but it's just something that needs to be done in my place. I'm losing customers. I can prove to you the lack of business I have this year versus last year, and I've been there for a full 3 years. I've just started my 4th year.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee? You have one? Dan? Oh, okay. I just have one question, actually. What's your understanding, what's your interpretation of the lease as to your responsibilities for the furnace and AC?
My interpretation of the lease is that I need to maintain those things that belong to the building in order for me to have proper heat and air conditioning. So I do my due diligence every year. I replace the what do you call them?
Air filter.
The filters. I replace the filters. I bleed the lines, make sure that I open it properly to do that. And I have somebody come in and do that for me. The first year that I wasn't responsible for it, that he did it the second year. The first year nothing happened. He did it the second year. I did it the third year. This is the 4th year now. So I've had that done. I've changed the filters. I only need to change them once. That's what I was told because it's only for the months of it's not. It doesn't work as both a heater and air conditioning. It's just a boiler. So it only works for 4 or 5 months that I have the heat on. So my understanding is that he's supposed to supply me with functioning units, and I'm supposed to maintain them. I don't have functioning units, which, by the way, 2 years ago, my air conditioner went completely kaput, didn't work at all, didn't call me, didn't ask me anything. He replaced it without any questions asked. So why is that different than this, number one? Number two, he asked me to pay my rent 2 weeks in advance so he could pay the air conditioning guy that replaced it. And I did, because I figured, he needed the help. I'm a nice person, and that's what I did. And now he's, turning around and doing this to me. So that's what I understand that lease to say.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from town staff for the witness? Seeing none. Mr. Quirk, do you have any questions of the witness?
Nothing that won't be covered in my presentation, Chair.
Okay, thank you. You can step down. Thanks. Okay, Mr. Quirk. Do you affirm the evidence that be given to you relating to the matters in question between the parties of the proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, so affirm.
Okay, thank you. You can go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I emailed the presentation to Noah. I wasn't sure if it's one that I can share my screen with the system or if someone has to control it for me.
Yeah, she'll just bring it up. 1 second.
Okay, no, that means I can read it on a different screen. That's important.
Okay, can you see it?
I can, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
So, Mr. Chair, through you and to the members of the committee, I appreciate your time today dealing with what is essentially a landlord-tenant dispute. And unfortunately, the town of Grimsby has been drawn into it. I have some commentary that I can leave to the end if I have some time with respect to some of the statements made by the tenant, but definitely some inaccuracies in his presentation, which I can refer to and have some pictures I can show as proof. But first of all, if I can go to the next slide, the enforcement officer indicated that there were four options for the committee. We are actually requesting that the order be nullified. And failing that we believe that the order should be reissued in the name of the leasee, Augie Bistro Ontario Inc., given section 2.18 of the bylaw, which says an owner includes the leasee or occupant of a property who under the terms of a lease is required to repair and maintain the property in accordance with the standards for the maintenance and occupancy of the property. So that's the first part. We just go to the next slide. The other section that we refer to within the Property Standards Act is the responsibility of the occupant, notwithstanding the responsibility of the owner, where the maintenance of the property affected by this bylaw is by written terms of the lease agreement for occupancy made the responsibility of the occupant. Property Standards Officer may require the occupant to repair and maintain the property to satisfaction of the Property Standards Officer in accordance with the particulars of the repairs set forth in the order. So that's right from the Property Standards bylaw. The other comment I would just like to make with respect to the original testimony by the officer was that she reviewed the lease, and by reviewing the lease suggested that the order should be issued to the landlord. We had to provide the copy of the lease after the order was issued, so I'm not sure which version she reviewed, but the actual lease was provided after the order had been issued to the owner of the building. If I could just ask for the next slide. So in a sense, the issue, don't disagree with the issue as indicated by Pat in his presentation. The startup boiler at the startup, there was a contractor called in. It wasn't the contractor that has been doing it since I used to own the building. No surprise to anyone who knows me from around town. I used to own the building. I still have an interest in the building, holding the mortgage on the building. But the same people have been maintaining it. The father and son team that Pat so quickly dismissed is the same group that's been managing and repairing at 72 degrees. They're known well within Grimsby. They've been doing heating and air conditioning within Grimsby for thousands of clients within Grimsby. They're well known. They're not some father and son team off the street. That wasn't the contractor that Pat called, the one that they've been using since I was owning the building and had been using it right up until 2021. We were informed at the time, the landlord was informed that the boiler had been red tagged. It was not repairable. After that, the 72 degrees did go in and take a look at it, and they did say it could be repaired. The hood in question has cracked. It's the collection hood for the burner gases, exhaust burner gases on a boiler. It can be repaired. There's no reason why it can't be, but Pat had contacted the landlord and told them the boiler had to be replaced. The landlord, citing the lease, indicated that the heating and air conditioning were the leasee's responsibility per the lease. Next slide, please. The lease states that chattels, equipments, liquor license, and maintenance, all chattels listed as is, no warranty for quality, all maintenance of equipment, including AC furnace, within the restaurant is the tenant's responsibility during the lease. The lease was signed in August 2021. The comment, the point that we're having the issue with between the landlord and the tenant and what's dragged the town into this discussion is the wording of this part. However, landlord makes sure to deliver functioning AC and furnace. And it's the assertion of the landlord that as of the signing of the lease, a functioning AC and furnace were delivered. And at that point, all equipment was no longer under warranty and was the requirement of the leasee to deal with, i.e. Augie Bistro. The next slide, please. Despite the fact that it was delivered functionally in August, because it hadn't been used the previous year, because it's simply for heating, the appellant, the landlord, made arrangements for 72 Degrees to go in to do the first maintenance in November of 2021, just before it got cold in the first year of the lease. The equipment then functioned as promised from the winter of 2021-22. It functioned again the winter of 2022-23, and it functioned again the third winter, 2023-2024. We're now in the 2024-2025 winter, and that's when it stopped working. So the testimony provided by Pat is not accurate in terms of the number of years that he was responsible for it and what happened the very first year he was there. After the first round of updates from the landlord in November 2021, at that point, the maintenance and repairs fell to the leasee. Next slide, please. The last time we can prove the unit was maintained was in 2021. That was the sticker done by 72 Degrees at the landlord's expense using the landlord's contractor. And as I said, this was to ensure that the unit was, quote, delivered functional. And the date on there, November 2nd, 2021. Next, and this Kevin is Bob's son. Kevin and Bob were the father-son team that have been working on this for a long time. After we have repeatedly requested, either from the property manager or the landlord, the leasee has not provided any written reports or proof of maintenance. We got an email from the property manager basically saying he asked Pat for both the maintenance log and the tagout report, which was evidently emailed to the town, but he was unable or unwilling to provide to either the requested documents. Next slide, please. When the leasee was informed of his responsibility to repair or replace the heating system, that's when he contacted the town of Grimsby and requested an inspection by the property standards bylaw officer. The bylaw officers did not ask to see the lease till after the property standards had been issued. When informed that the lease indicated the leasee was responsible, Henry Boyes provided the following email response. Thank you for your in-depth email on this matter. Could you please send over a signed copy of the lease agreement as the property standards bylaw defines the owner as a property owner or the leasee of the property? This would definitely assist our office in determining who was responsible. Next slide, please. We provided a copy of the lease and expected that to be the end of the matter. Unfortunately, after that, I had to follow up with both Emily and Henry to see if they'd refused the lease and did not get any response until November 15th when he responded, thank you for sending over that information. Upon reviewing the documents, our department is under the belief that the responsibility to provide a functioning furnace or source of suitable heat. And that was November 15th. That was why the date for the delay for the appeal was not till the 16th. I would also let the committee know that in the meantime, between the issuing of the order, the visit from myself to the site, as a previous owner, I had some history with the boiler and was asked by the landlord to take a look at it. The staff was quite happy to show us to the basement. There was no animosity, no comment saying you can't go down there without Pat. Chris was quite happy to go down there, show us everything. In fact, he pointed out an issue that he felt with respect to where the power was coming from. And we had a good conversation with him at the time. There's no animosity at that point whatsoever. When we finished looking at the building, the boiler, I did leave. Pat came over. He was very aggressive, and I responded in kind. But I left, and then he and Greg finished the discussion. In the meanwhile, I had been in contact with Henry at the property standards officer to say, here's what we're looking at recommending doing. Do you have any input on that? Which of these things would require a building permit? We have been trying to find a solution for this, and that's basically where we've got to with dragging the town into this. Next slide, please. Our position is that the town of Grimsby, through its bylaw and property standards, have inserted themselves into a landlord-tenant dispute for a commercial lease. Despite this property standards order, MCP has been exploring options, including repairing the existing boiler system, replacing baseboard heaters for a new forced air heat pump. Heat pump was the term that we were talking about. The 1.5-ton heat point for 1,800 square feet is more than adequate. A 1.5-ton heat pump will heat and cool up to 3,000 square feet. We are suggesting that the installation supply will be the responsibility of the leasee. The town involving itself dispute has eliminated any requirement for negotiation with the leasee. We have not received any of the documentation that we've requested from the leasee. And in fact, when we went to look at the boiler, there's so much of his material in the basement that it would have been difficult, if not impossible, to do any work in timely manner in the basement. We have no proof that the equipment has been properly serviced over the past 3 summers. I'd just also like to add that while the landlord did replace the air conditioning at his own cost, there was no obligation for him to do that. And he made it very clear that he was doing so, not to set a precedent. The landlord in question has tried to be reasonable all the way through this dispute. Next slide, please. I believe that's the end of the presentation. I'd just like to add a couple of things with respect to the requirement of the property standards order is to repair or replace. The only way we can legitimately repair it is if we have access to the red tag documentation, so we can know exactly what the repair requirements to bring our own contractor in. As you may or may not know, a contractor, someone red tags it. The other contractor has to see the red tag to be able to determine what repairs are and aren't feasible. It is the expert opinion of our contractor that it is repairable. And the problem is with the way the lease works currently, if the boiler is considered repairable, it's Pat's responsibility. He is now not provided information with the hope that we're being forced through the town's actions to replace the boiler completely. And apologize, Chair, I haven't been watching the time. I'm not sure if I've used up my 10 minutes or not.
No, you have enough time to present your case. Thanks.
Just the last thing I just wanted to add again is that we have been trying to find a solution working with the tenant in the past. Carl and Maria, the 2 landlords, have gone above and beyond to try to make things work. Some of the other issues that Pat has raised are issues with respect to electrical, things like putting 2 pizza ovens that draw a significant amount of amperage out. When he points out that the plug melted, he didn't use the appropriate sized extension cord for a 1500 watt heater. Those sort of things are things that he should be doing as part of his responsibilities. We recognize and we are disheartened that the town has been drawn into what would essentially be a landlord-tenant dispute. But with that, we hope the committee would consider, again, either nullifying the order, allowing negotiations between a landlord and tenant to proceed, or alternatively, reissuing the order in Pat's name and taking the obligation off the landlord, as they do not feel that they're responsible. They lived up to their obligations under the lease, which was to deliver functioning equipment as of the signing of the lease. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee? Go ahead, Fabia.
Through you, Chair, I have a question for Mr. Quirk. Can you supply the name of the contractor that told you that boiler is fixable? The one that's been working on it?
Through you, Chair, yes, ma'am. 72 Degrees. Kevin at 72 Degrees is the contractor who we've been using since his dad, Bob, was running the company.
And that's a Grimsby company?
Might be a 563 number, but they definitely do work in Grimsby.
And the contractor that states that the boiler does not work, do you know what his name was?
No, ma'am. We've asked for the tag out from the leasee, and he would not provide it. Evidently, he provided it to the town, but he wouldn't provide it to us. The fact that it was emailed after the fact, most licensed TSS agents carry those pads with them as a matter of course. It should be in their pad. They don't necessarily, reputable ones have them with them, is what I will say to you. I don't know the name because it wasn't provided to us.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions from the committee?
Yep, thank you. In your notice for appeal, Mr. Quirk, it says ongoing maintenance and repair is the responsibility of the tenant. So I'm just confused on that, maintenance and repair. And then in the tenant lease agreement, it says all maintenance of equipment. So it only has the one word maintenance in it. And so I'm trying to word my question here, or think of my question. I agree that maintenance is up to the tenant to maintain the boiler. But I don't, like I said, I don't see that word repair or replacement in the lease. So I'm having a hard time kind of getting on side with that one. And then.
Sorry, can I respond to each point?
Yeah,
Mr.
please.
Chair? So, and answer your question, the argument I would make is maintenance is repairing if there is minor maintenance that needs to be done. But if maintenance isn't being done, like, so let me put it in regards this way. If you have a warranty on your car and you don't do the maintenance and minor repairs that are required, the warranty may be disallowed if you take your car in after the fact, if you haven't done your maintenance. So we have no proof that maintenance has been done on the equipment. That's the first thing. The other thing is that very clearly within the lease, we've said chattels equipment, liquor license maintenance, all chattels listed, as is no warranty for quality. And that includes all equipment, including AC and furnace. So we clearly said that for all equipment, because you have to remember that there was also other kitchen equipment and other things that have been added to the restaurant over the years, from the time it was Chibo to the time that Carl took over to the time that Pat took over. So, and because it's a single, the boiler system only heats the one unit, that's part of the equipment within the lease. And I mean, that's the argument that we're using and we're making to the committee.
Okay, thank you. Then a follow-up. Can you provide documentation that states that a lack of maintenance led to the demise of the boiler?
Can I say that definitely lack of maintenance? All I know is that when it was maintained for 20 odd years, it worked. When it stopped being maintained, it stopped working. So the issue is the hood is cracked. So it obviously hasn't been maintained properly, because the hoods can be repaired, right? So if a hood rusts out, it can be repaired and maintained. And we know what the issue is, right? It's the hood has been the crack in the hood.
Any further questions from the committee? I just have one, I guess. It's going back to, would you agree there's a difference between the terms of maintenance, which is really to keep something functioning, and repair, which is bringing something from a non-functioning state back to functioning state? Because I'm guessing right now the boiler is non-functioning.
I would say to you, Chair, that maintenance and always involves some minor repairs, right? It's not just straight forward in that regard. And I think ultimately, when this goes to court, that'll be what the judge will be asked to decide.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions?
But with respect, if maintenance isn't done, then the repairs become exponential, right?
Any questions from town staff? Any questions from the Mr. Russo? Just relating to the evidence that was presented. If you come to the podium, please.
So one is the lease that you were showing up there before is different lease than what I have here. I have my original copy of my lease. It looks like it's been changed to say different words that are not on my lease, and I can show it because I brought it with me. Can you prove to me that I would send emails or requests time-stamped and dated that for the information that you required?
Sorry, through you, Chair. Pat, when I met you in the basement, I asked you for a copy of that tag-out report. You showed it to me on your phone.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
You showed it to me on your phone, Pat, and you said, this is the guy you told me to call. And I said, Pat, it's not the guy I told you to call.
You didn't ask me for anything. You didn't ask me for anything. Do you have documentation? Do you have an email? Do you have a text that says that you required this information? You said that Greg on the 10th asked me. Let me finish. You said that Greg asked me something.
One at a, please, one at a time.
We'll definitely be happy to provide that evidence when it goes to court.
Please just contain to the questions and just try and,
Okay.
thanks.
So my question wasn't answered because I've asked if he has proof that he's asked me. Also, the email that was said that Greg sent me to request some information, I don't have any email from anybody. Do they have an email, a track? If it's an email, you can track it. You can tell that somebody sent it to me. Can you prove that to me? Because I've never received an email in request for anything from you.
Mr.
Or
Quirk.
Greg.
Mr. Quirk.
I don't have anything like that because I'm not a contact for Pat.
So can you provide me with proof from Greg that he sent me this email?
Not at this time, no.
Okay.
It doesn't change the issue. Doesn't change the issue.
Yeah, it does to me. It does to me because
Okay.
I would have provided
It
you
just-
with whatever you asked me.
Just stick to questions
I'm sorry.
rather than
I
comments.
apologize. I've never done this before, so I'm very new to this. I don't have all the lingo that you guys use and whatnot. Can I make a statement?
I do actually have an issue with you saying that this lease isn't the wording on your lease. I sent a PDF copy of the lease.
Yeah, you just got to answer the questions. Commentary, you had the opportunity to present during your direct.
Is it possible for me to have my cook or chef, whoever it is, Chris, that he mentioned, give an affidavit about what he said and saying that he didn't want him to go in the basement, and he says that he was amicable and wanted him to go?
As in terms of this hearing, I mean...
Because it's he said or she said, right?
Yeah,
and he's lying about that.
What's the relevance to the...
The relevance is that he had no permission to go down in the basement, and he was the one that was aggressive, not me.
Okay.
I got called in, so I wanted to prove that nobody gave him permission to go down there. And the sticker that's on that on the thing over on the boiler that he's showing is brand new. They put it there that day. That's a brand new sticker.
Yeah.
Because I was looking.
That is outright lie, Pat. You're a liar. That's absolutely a lie.
Mr. Quirk? Thank you. Any further questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Dylan, you have a question for Mr. Quirk?
Through you, sorry, the question was was directed to Mr. Russo. So.
Okay, maybe it's just simple. Yeah, if you want to go ahead.
Sorry, it's just a quick clarification based on what was presented by Mr. Quirk.
Yeah. Okay.
The 3 years of maintenance on the boiler. Do you have documented proof that the years in question since 2021, that annual maintenance was completed?
So 2021, I didn't do maintenance. I took over in August of 2021. He opened the boiler up for me. During that time, I was new. 2022, he brought in these two father and son team to do it. 2023, I have documentation of what my guy did. He came in. I have to find it, but it's a bill that he did. He charged me $150 to change the filter, bleed the line, and just do a little cleaning around the boiler itself. And 2024 is now. So I just entered my 4th year. Yeah, if you need documentation for that 1 year that I did it, yeah, absolutely, I have that. But the first year I didn't have to, and the second year he brought in this company, that the father and son team, and for some reason I asked him for their number and their information, and he was not able to provide it to me. All of a sudden, it's available.
Sorry, just to be clear, through you, Mr. Chair, the 22-23 where the maintenance was done by 72 degrees. Sorry, was that who called that? Was that the landlord who called that? Was it Carl who called them in?
Yes.
Just so I'm clear of which party did what.
So Carl called them on my behalf.
Okay.
Because I needed the boiler to start up, and they came in on my behalf, and they actually showed me what I should be doing because it was new to me and whatnot. So, but I haven't seen them since. Haven't heard. I don't even have their number.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Any other further questions from the committee for Mr. Quirk? Seeing none, it's time to, I guess, make a decision. So upon considering the appeal, the committee may confirm the order, modify the order. Sorry, I just had a quick question for staff. before I get into that. What was, you suggested that it be extended, correct?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, do you mind repeating that? I just want to make sure I'm answering.
Yeah, I think one of the recommendations that you said that the order be extended, when would that be until?
That, through you, Mr. Chair, that would be up to the committee.
Okay. Do you have any kind of operating, requirements for that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, so upon considering the appeal, the committee may confirm the order, modify the order, rescind the order, or extend the compliance date on the order as the committee considers appropriate. The motions required with respect to the decision under the appeal shall be seconded and shall be read by the chair before debate and shall be read again by the chair before being voted on. Once seconded, the motions may be debated by the committee. In situations where more than one decision is under appeal, each appeal shall be debated separately and voted on separately. Once each member of the committee has had opportunity to state their position on the appeal before it, the chair shall call for a vote. So our motions options are to confirm the property standards order 2024-560, rescind the same order, extend the compliance date for the same order, or modify the same order. So do we have any motions? Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Chair. I find it resolved that property standards, that the Property Standards Committee confirm property standard order number 2024-560. And yep.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder on that? Fabia? Second. Okay, discussion on the motion. Anyone have any comments or reasons why they're supporting it?
Yeah, the reason why I'm supporting it is, again, the wording of the lease. I see maintenance. I see no reason how the boiler could get to this state. There's no documentation that proves that a lack of maintenance got it to this state where it needs to be repaired or replaced. We're not sure at that point what it is yet. And so it's for that reason why I'm resolving that we confirm the property standards order.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or debate from the committee? Seeing none, I'll just offer some of my comments. Just give me a second here. Yeah, to me, there's two questions before us. And was there a violation of the property standards order, which I think clearly there is. There's no functioning heat. Was the order issued to the correct party? And Section 8 of the lease agreement, I think, really is the focus here. And it says basically maintenance. And I don't know if the other committee members agree, but I found it was kind of ambiguous as in terms of there's no mention of repair. And there's a legal principle in contract law called, I'm going to get my Latin terrible, contra preferentum. It means against the offerer. It's a contract law principle that where there's ambiguity in a contract, and I think there is in this lease, that the ambiguity goes against the person who drafted on the premise that they may benefit from this ambiguity. And I think this is the case here. So I believe that provision, and I also gave some weight to that the landlord deliver functioning AC and furnace. I mean, that's up to legal interpretation, whether it's instantaneous at the time of a lease or whether it's ongoing. These are the reasons why I support the motion. So any other further comments or questions from the committee? Seeing none, I'll read the, go ahead.
Through your chair, I just wanted to add one thing. I agree with everything both of you have stated. I also thought the lease was very weak in its wording, and I looked up the Landlord-Tenant Act, and the landlord is responsible to keep the property in good state of repair and also to supply heating at 72 degrees from September to June. So I took everything into account, and I totally support how we're moving tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll just read the motion again. Be it resolved that, moved by Dan, second by Fia, resolved that Property Standards Committee, Property Standards Order Number 2024560 be confirmed. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Opposed, if any? That was carried. Mr. Quirk, so the appeal was upheld and the appeal was dismissed and the property standards order is confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I understand that we have 14 days to appeal. Could I find out if that's 14 business days or 14 calendar days?
Yeah, I'll just
14 days when we get notice.
I'll just read what I have here. It says, municipality in which the property is situated or any owner, occupant, or person by a decision of the Property Standards Committee may appeal to the Superior Court of Justice by notifying the town clerk in writing and by applying to the court within 14 days after a copy of the decision is sent. Thank you. So you may need to check with your lawyer, but I believe the civil rules of civil procedure computation of time, that would be calendar days. Because I think if it's under 7, I think they only count business days, but in excess of 7, but I would check with the lawyer on that one. So I would say be on the safe side, assume it's calendar days.
And can I ask when the notice of this will be sent?
It'll be issued within a week.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, sir, you have a quick question? Yeah, it just comes to the podium.
In the meantime, while all this appeal stuff is going on, it's getting really, really cold outside, and it's very difficult for me to keep even my own staff well heated, and the danger of the fire with the heaters that I have and losing my business and losing my customers that are complaining about it being too cold. What do I do about that?
That's between you and the landlord. You have to fight it out. We have no jurisdiction
right, but
over
if you're
that.
saying that am I understanding properly that it's upheld, that they're responsible for it?
Yeah, you may want to speak to bylaw, and they'll just let you know what the process is there from there on.
Sorry about that.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
I never did this before, so.
No worries. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. So that concludes the Property Standards Committee, and it's adjourned at 7:54 p.m., and we'll now proceed to the Committee of Adjustment. Sure. Do you want to recess for what? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? What works for you? Sorry? How long? 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. Okay. We're going to go into recess for 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everyone. So we're into the Committee of Justice section of the agenda now. So I'll give an overview of the meeting procedures. The purpose of the application and relative correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will then be given the opportunity to speak. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant or agent or any other person who files a written request. Request a copy of the decision, please email Dehara Appawardene, Secretary Treasurer at coa@grimsby.ca. The applicant, the town of Grimsby, the minister, or a specified person or public body has the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of consent to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days the date of giving notice under subsection 17 is completed for a consent application, and within 20 days the note of decision for a minor variance application. Specified persons in certain public bodies include public utilities but do not include an individual or community association. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Please address your comments and questions to the chair. Each participant will be provided 5 minutes to speak. Each participant may only speak once. If you hear your comment presented by someone else, please do not duplicate remarks. When you're called, we ask you state your name and address for the record. Agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. All members of the committee have viewed the properties on the agenda tonight and are familiar with the lands that are subject to the applications. And we have 3 applications tonight. And Dylan, I believe you had your hand up previously.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Yes, through you. The 3 remaining items, the third on the list, there's staff has stated it may be wise to consider a deferral. And so I'm just thinking in the thinking of time, and if there's any individuals, there to speak on 61 Main, if perhaps we should do that one first. But I'm certainly, at the will of the committee. I'm not sure what others are thinking about that.
Yeah, the Secretary Treasurer indicated to me that it's actually first for us, so we're going to deal with that one. Thank you. So the first application is going to be 61 Main Street East, A33-24.
Thank you, Chair. So for today's meeting, we have 3 minor variances. The first minor variance is 61 Main Street East. The second is 28 Diana Avenue, and the third is 16 Bell Avenue. So 61 Main Street East first came to the committee in October. At that time, it was deferred. The proponent is currently in the process of submitting revised plans for a parking study for the justification of the reduction of required parking. Hence, planning and public works staff have reviewed this current application at its date and have recommended that, or have requested for this application to be deferred until staff can make a determination on the findings of that parking study that is still currently being completed. Otherwise, planning staff state that they have no objections to the minor variance proposed by the applicant, except for related to that reduced parking. Additionally, no comments were received from the region or the NPCA.
Okay, thank you. And I guess we do or don't have an agent.
We have no representative here today.
Okay, thanks. So I'll just place in the hands of the committee, I guess, staff's request. Yep, you want to go ahead?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I find it resolved that the minor variance application A3324 for 61 Main Street East be deferred as requested by the, we have someone with their hand raised, Jared.
So the agent is online. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I will withhold my comments for now.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you can hear me, I just wanted to say that we're okay with the request for deferral tonight. In fact, we emailed Mr. Basic yesterday to suggest it was necessary to defer the application.
Okay, do you have a preference as to when this should be deferred until?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ultimately, we're up to the committee's discretion, but we think it would be appropriate to come back in January.
Okay, staff, how do you feel about that?
I have no objections to that date. The key is the completion of the parking study.
Okay. Would you prefer some leeway and buffer to say a future meeting, or do you want?
I'll leave it to the applicant's representative. Yeah, I know they want to. Well, we're still in the process of reviewing the site plan.
Okay.
So we're not delaying the site plan review in any way. Obviously, everything will be dependent on the conclusion of these minor variances. But I'll leave it up to the applicant to determine whether or not a more open date would be appropriate, or whether a hard date in January would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Jared, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I suppose to Mr. Basic's comments, our only concern about not putting it on the January agenda would be how much delay time there is to come back on an agenda in front of the committee. I don't want to keep deferring and then having to come back here and ask for further deferrals, but.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. It's simply a matter of notification. So we want to give everybody enough time to be available for the meeting. So it would be 10 days at least before the meeting that we're required to send a notice out. Jared would know better than I as to the completion date of the parking study. I know our recommendations to the consultant included doing a more detailed analysis of local surrogate sites that were more comparable to the site than was previously submitted with the parking submission. So again, I'll leave it to Jared to determine whether or not the completion of the study will give us sufficient time, at least 10 days prior to the meeting date. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Jared, when do you think the parking study would be completed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The study was supposed to be completed in time for this meeting, so we're hopeful that it'll be done before the Christmas break. But everybody's busy. We're kind of at the mercy of our consultant at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, because I just don't want to have you keep coming back and kick the can down the road a little further each time. So would you be okay with the January date, Jared?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chair, that would be fine for us.
Okay, and we'd be able to have enough time that staff would be able to, analyze.
Yeah, like Mr. Basic said, we've had some discussion with town staff already about the report. We're just waiting for the final deliverable.
Okay, thanks. I'll just leave that decision in the hands of the committee.
Well, my only comment, Mr. Chair, would be just leave it open. When they're ready, they're ready. It's on the agenda. We deal with it. If not, it's the next meeting. So that way they don't have to attend and say, can we have a deferral again if they're not ready. So leave it wide open. If they show up on the January agenda, we deal with it, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Thanks.
Good. Okay, then I'll continue with my resolution that application A3324 for 61 Main Street be deferred.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any discussion on the deferral? All those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Opposed, if any? Okay, that was carried. So that was deferred. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, next application is A39-24 for 16 Bell Avenue. Sorry, I mixed it up there. A38-24 for 28 Diane Avenue. Sarup?
Thank you, Chair. So the minor variance application for 28 Diana is to facilitate the construction of an addition attached garage to the existing single detached 1.5-story dwelling to the subject lands at 28 Diana Avenue. So the requested minor variances are the minimum interior side yard south of 1.2 meters and the maximum garage projection of 0.6 meters beyond the front wall of the first story of the dwelling. These are the site plans as circulated. This is the 2023 aerial imagery provided by GIMS of the property at 28 Diana. And these were the commenting authorities, so the Town of Grimsby Planning, Town of Grimsby Public Works, Niagara Region, and NPCA. Niagara Region and NPCA offer no comments, but these are the following comments from Planning and Public Works. Planning are of the opinion that the minor variances meet the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw and are appropriate for the development of the lands and are minor in nature. Therefore, there are no objections. Public Works staff note that no concerns with the submitted application subject to the submission of a grading plan or for approval at the time of the building permit application to show that the proposed grades will tie into the existing grades of the adjacent properties and to demonstrate how the drainage will be addressed or maintained.
Okay, thank you. Staff, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. In addition to the comments that we provided on the agenda, we did discover another variance that would be required for the proposed addition, which is the minimum front yard setback. So the minimum front yard is required to be at the location of the existing dwelling or the average of the two adjoining dwellings on either side of the lot, whichever's less. As the neighboring properties or neighboring buildings, in our estimation, are aligned with the subject building, there will be, because the garage extends closer to the front lot line than the existing building and the neighboring dwellings, the addition will require another variance, which is identified in the resolution that we have crafted for tonight. I think it's 7.8 something meters. And our conclusion is that that reduction also satisfies the intent of the official plan, the intent of the zoning bylaw, is desirable for the appropriate development of the land, and is minor in nature. So our conclusion is the same, and the analysis that we provided in the memo also applies to this proposed or to this additional variance that we've identified today. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Is the agent or applicant here? They wish to add anything to the comments? All good? Okay. Any questions from the committee for the agent or applicant? Seeing none. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to this? Seeing none, literally. Is there a motion on this application and the reasons therefore?
Mr. Chair, I can do that. I'll do the, so you're looking for the revised motion to incorporate the additional variance that was discovered after the circulation. And since there's nobody in attendance speaking to this matter, I have no problem supporting that revision without further circulation. So I'll make the motion that resolve that minor variance application A3824, 28 Diana Avenue to facilitate the construction of an addition attached garage to the existing single detached 1.5-story dwelling on the subject lands to permit a minimum interior south side or side yard south of 1.21 meters, whereas a minimum interior side yard of 1.8 meters is required as per section 721, table 11 of the zoning bylaw as amended, and to permit a maximum garage projection of 0.61 meters beyond the front wall of the first story of the dwelling, whereas no garage shall project beyond the front wall of the first story of the dwelling as per section 429B of the zoning bylaw as amended. And to permit a front yard setback, this is the revision, of 7.8 meters, whereas 8.48 meters is required as per Q2 of section 72 of table 11 of the zoning bylaw as amended. Reasons being, I support that. So reasons being, there is no one in attendance and speaking it against it, despite the request to add the variance or the revision. And it meets the 4 tests as outlined in the Planning Act that we are to consider. And the staff also support it as well. So I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder on the motion? Dylan? Any discussion on the motion from the committee? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Opposed, if any. So the application was approved and the motion was carried. So you have, it's subject to a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you. So next application is A3924 for 16 Bell Avenue. Sarup?
Thank you, Chair. So the final application today, 16 Bell, is to permit the widening of the proposed driveway for a currently in construction single detached 2-story dwelling on the subject lands of 16 Bell Avenue. So the variance is requested is to permit a maximum driveway width of 9 meters, whereas 6 meters is permitted as per section 4.31A in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. So these are the circulated site plans for 16 Bell Avenue. This is the 2023 aerial imagery from GIMS for 16 Bell Avenue. This is the noted road allowance provided by Google Maps 2021. So these are the following agencies that provided comments. So Grimsby Town of Grimsby Public Works, and Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority and Niagara Region. The NPCA and Niagara Region provide no comments or concerns. And these are the following comments from Planning and Public Works. So planning are of the opinion that the minor variances meet the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw and are appropriate for the development of the lands and are minor in nature. Therefore, there are no objections. Public Works staff do not object to the proposed increased driveway width beyond the maximum allowable 6 meters to 9 meters from the section of the driveway on private property. However, Public Works staff note that the section of the driveway on the right-of-way from the property line to the front to the edge of the road cannot be greater than 6 meters in width. An entrance permit will be required for that section of the driveway within the right-of-way at the time of construction.
Okay, thank you. Do we have the agent or applicant online?
Yes.
Okay, do you have anything further to add or any comments?
No.
Okay, short enough. Any questions? Any questions or comments from the committee?
Mr. Chair, I do. I just want clarification maybe from staff. I'm not sure what they mean. Public Works is talking about not allowing this variance or this wider driveway from the property line to the roadway. So what we're granting the variance, for only that area of the driveway that's on their property? So where it meets the road, the travel road, it can't be wider than 6 meters.
In essence, you're correct through you, Chair. The zoning bylaw only applies to private property, doesn't apply to the road allowance. And any work done within the road allowance requires, because the town owns the land, requires a permit. And and they indicated that they will not issue a permit for a wider driveway. It's primarily, my understanding is that there's a culvert there and there's a requirement. They don't like culverts that are more than a certain length for maintenance purposes. So that's the rationale behind that. But on the property itself, which is what the variance is for, they do not, and we do not object to a widened driveway on the property. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions from the committee? Actually, just the staff, maybe just clarification. Is it, I can't remember, was this property the one that had this sort of, it's like this, the right-of-way is this, like it looked like it was like going to be a court at one time or something like that?
That's correct. There were previous variances on this site with regard to the building itself. The town did own a temporary property, sort of a semicircle along the frontage of the property, which nearly came to the front of the building. Again, that was intended to support a temporary cul-de-sac until the lands to the west were developed. And lands to the west were developed, the cul-de-sac was eliminated, and there was no longer a need for the wider right-of-way, and it was deemed to be surplus to the town's needs, and then reverted back to the owners at no cost. Yeah, so that's the site.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone in the audience? Seeing none, who speak to this? Is there a motion on this application and your reasons therefore? Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Before I give my comments, I just say I was at first concerned about the trees, but I'm thrilled to see they're still there, and it's a beautiful house. Very, very well done, well designed. I find it resolved that minor variance A3924 for 16 Bell Avenue to permit a maximum driveway width of 9 meters, whereas 6 meters is permitted as per section 431A in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, be approved with one condition that upon construction, an entrance permit be obtained through Public Works for the section of the driveway within the right-of-way.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder on that?
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I just want to do a quick correction. That's not a condition. It's just a note. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Thank you. I will remove my condition then and just go straight to approved.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder on this? Savia? Any further discussion on the application or the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Opposed, if any? That was carried, and your application approved. It's subject to a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you. So that concludes our application for this evening. So other business, committee adjustment process improvements. This was referred back to us by council, so I just hope all those in the committee had a chance to read it and offer any comments on it.
Sorry, you're looking for comments?
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't really have that much time to look at it, but I guess my only concern with the comments in here, I mean, they're all general good recommendations, flow of information, training, and so on, but the one I have issue with, I think, is page 3, top, enhanced training for COA members. The opening statement, committee of adjustment decisions are being at odds with recommendations of planning, if ever, should be a rare exception and certainly not the rule. After all, the legislative policy governance informing their decision are identical. The concerns, the issues always seem to arise when the committee considers information and usually public input and public participation that we go against the staff recommendation. That's usually the contentious ones that make it to council. Council has to consider whether they're going to support an appeal or not, which involves usually hiring another independent planning consultant because it would go against what their planning staff. But I think that statement is kind of like, well, we are here to interpret, because there's no they didn't really talk in this report about the legislation that we have to consider, I think, in our, as sitting as committee of adjustment. So provincial interest is the one, and they say, well, if you're considering provincial interest, that's what we follow as planning, so you should just you should basically just take our recommendation because we're all following the same. But it really just says, and I would have liked to have more legislative background in this report, because the Planning Act just says the committee must have regard to, but it's pretty general things. It's like listed from A to R, and they're pretty general. And I know it's all about housing and this and that, but there's also general statements, and that's where we kind of weigh the balance of a planning report and the public that comes in that's affected by our decision. So it's talking about, coordination of planning activities, public, that's not really the one I was looking for. Oh, the appropriate location of growth and development. That's usually the ones that are contentious, and we have regard for that. But we also listen to the public and the people that show up, not just the planning reports. And those are the things that become contentious. So I think there should be more thought about that. And it does say when there's an appeal, the tribunal shall consider all the material and information that the committee considered in their decision. And one of them is the public input. And that's where our concern is always, when it makes it to council, are they hearing everything that we heard when we were sitting here deciding it? If it's really going to be a planning decision, then let them decide all the cases. You don't need the committee of adjustment. But we're here to weigh all the evidence, verbal and written, and give it all weight and have regard to all those things, including the provincial interest. So I just think that comment, I know it kind of offended me a little bit as a committee member, being independent, is it shouldn't really just be, well, whatever planning says, we shouldn't really go against it, or it should be rare. So that's my only concern about the whole report.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that was my major concern too. It just, if everything's policy-based and everyone is supposed to agree based on policy, there would be no two planners at the OLT opposing each other, saying completely opposite opinions on the same matter, because they are drawing from the same policy. I just, some comments I had written down here is that we're not here to facilitate applications, but critically engage them, because they are asking for basically to bend the bylaw. So it's really incumbent upon, us to listen to the applicant, but also on the public from their perspective on things. So whereas planning reports, are largely drawn from policy, we have to draw from policy, but we also have to give regard to the public input. And I don't know, maybe as a suggestion, I was looking at planning reports from Markham, and they actually put in the planning reports, this is, let's see if I have a copy of it here. Yes, they put right in their conclusion, staff recommend the committee consider public input in reaching a decision. And that's boilerplate text on every one of their planning reports. See what else I have here. And I guess I was saying, just because we have to look at things differently, this is where a difference of opinion can occur. And just the way that was written in the report, if ever, it was kind of tucked in there, and it was the way it was worded. It just didn't come across very positively. That's what I felt. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. I don't think that was the intent. I think it was just merely a numerical sort of comment that they are rare. And it's just was supposed to be a statement of fact. So I don't think it was intended to come across the way it probably did. And absolutely, like when the reports or memos are written by planning staff, obviously planning staff do not have the benefit of hearing all of the evidence that's submitted. So as you mentioned, as is done, so that's always understood. It's always understood that we do not have all of the information before us. So so sometimes based on new information that's provided, we don't necessarily have a problem with a committee ruling against staff recommendation if issues are brought up that demonstrate that an application does not meet the 4 tests. So absolutely. But our apologies. It wasn't intended to be taken as, or wasn't intended to be given as it was taken. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Let's see if I have any other comments here. Any other comments from the committee before sorry. Oh, Dylan, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to state to you, Mr. Chair, I do agree with the 2 comments that you've made. I do think that when it comes to, perhaps when it, if there's a decision that as the committee that we just should disagree with planning staff, and it talks about what does council, what do they receive in order to provide some kind of context. While these, meetings are recorded and they would have access to, oftentimes, and as sometimes hours of discussion. It's probably not likely, and they would obviously look at all the materials, and then they would look at our minutes. Our minutes are very administrative is what I would call them, which is perfectly fine, and especially in a municipal setting. But I'm just wondering as a committee if we need to, when those situations occur, if it would be perhaps, I don't know this, better practice to, provide, a summary of some of the comments that have been made. I mean, it's difficult for, I would say, us active members to sort of be listening to what's being said, recording what is being said, and then when it comes to, as I said, sometimes a very long discussion and complicated one, to instead of just talking about the 4 tests, but to then, if we don't agree with whichever test, to then state the rationale for each one. It may be a challenge, but I'm just thinking, is that something that, should be considered? Would it be included in the minutes? I don't know. It's just something I sort of was thinking of in relation to the report and some of the discussion tonight.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Staff's going to actually speak to that.
Through you, Mr. Chair. That is one of the definite things that we've been looking at. If you look at the first one, the enhanced council awareness of reasoning for the COA decision, we talk about templates. And I know Dilhara and I have been going through a number of municipalities to try and look at all the various templates to try to see all the good things and like compare and contrast different municipalities. So we've done some legwork just to try to see how we can provide additional reasoning in those. But we definitely talked about that last time, about how we can further supplant providing that reasoning, especially in those situations where there is a disagreement, so that council has that full awareness of what decision they're making. So we're trying to do that, and I was hoping at one of our workshops that we talk about later in the report that maybe we can go through some of those things, that we can further fine tune some of that work. And again, I apologize for any offense that was taken by something that was totally not intended that way.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it's just sort of the way I look at it is there's our decision, even if it's totally complete with pages of reasons. There's a planning report. The minutes are sort of, lack of a better term, the missing middle. You know what I mean? So that there's I don't know if it's necessary. There's 3 sides to every story, right? But there's things that you may not have considered or we may not have considered that are in the minutes that gives council pause for thought in terms of whether to support an appeal or not. So.
And we're looking at every type of template. So it's from the minutes, the agendas, to the decisions, to like every single one of the step components of the templates that we're looking at. So trying to cover all the bases that we can go through.
Okay, go ahead.
And further to that, it's the nuances that I feel that you feel are missing, right? It's the nuances of the decision. It's really only the decision that everybody on the committee has a chance to vote on. So it's the resolution itself. So whatever's in the resolution, and unless the committee votes on it, so if one has one opinion, or one member has one opinion, another member has a different opinion, that really doesn't factor into the decision, because it's what everybody has an opportunity to vote on, which is the resolution itself. That's important. In terms of the minutes and expanding the minutes to include the nuances of a discussion, I really think that's often going to be left to the interpretation of the person writing and then the committee, whether or not it actually captured the nuances. So what I feel is important is if the minutes were more detailed, to write some prose as to identify what the discussion was, I think the nuances could potentially be lost or tainted by the writer. So I think it's important that you don't do that, that you have the resolution. This is my own opinion, that you don't do that, that you have the resolution that everybody votes on, which expresses the will of the committee. And then if that forces people to actually look at the meeting and the video recording of the meeting, and because it's available to anybody, it's online, to look at the video recording of the meeting, and that way nothing is lost in translation because you get to witness the entire discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, because the province removed the ability of residents to appeal a decision themselves, then it really is imperative on council they're the last hope for the residents if there's an issue. So they really have to be brought into the loop in terms of what was considered. I can think of the last appeal, right? So they really don't have representation at an OLT hearing. So it's really council who has the last kick at it if they so desire, but then they should be aware of what factors went into it. So it's really important that they get the full package when they're considering to support an appeal or not bother, right? Before, residents could appeal it, they could hire their own, right? They're protecting their own property in a sense, property values, property rights, whatever they feel was necessary. But because they don't have that anymore, it's really up to council as the last hope for them. And the council will really have to decide if it's worth it or not. It might seem expensive for one appeal, but they are kind of they were elected to represent the residents of the area. We're, objective body, but if someone wants to appeal it, then council really is sticking up for them in a sense, if they've got a feel. But then back to my original point is they need to have the full information package, and it's up to them then to watch the video and see what we considered. And I mean, we have that great advantage now in the last 4 or 5 years now that they're all recorded, right? Before it wasn't. So it really was just the minutes and a few written submissions perhaps. So anyways.
Yeah, just to speak to that, and I guess staff's opinion, I agree that, detailed minutes can maybe perhaps some bias, but on the other hand, I don't see how, stating Mrs. Smith spoke to this application and raised the issue of shadow or privacy, that's pretty objective. So stuff like that, I think, just help it inform, because we're not going to put in our decision, well, we're supporting this because Mrs. Smith said it's going to shadow impact. We might say shadow impacts in general, but maybe there was 4 or 5 people who spoke to it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, because essentially you're stating fact. I'm thinking beyond that. I don't think it's appropriate for the minutes to be a verbatim when you have the recording itself. So yes, stating facts like that is not an issue in my opinion. But beyond that, I think you run into the potential of coloring the discussion in a way that it might taint the sort of how it actually happened. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Any other further questions or comments from the committee? I guess my only question would be, how should we handle this to get this correspondence back to council, or our comments?
Well, I think there's 2 motions. One that just says pass it on, and the other one is be received, committee's feedback be forwarded to the next council meeting for consideration. So I'm assuming that's what your preference would be.
I leave that up to the committee.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Through you, Mr. Chair, I have to bring a report back to committee. So because your minutes go through correspondence, it's not going to land as a report to committee. So I'm going to have to bring a report back to committee. So we can have your minutes and they'll just go through a normal process, but I'll just make some amendments to the report and have an addendum or amended report. And then we'll bring that back to, I think, the January meeting, which is
January 13th.
The 13th. Yeah, I think that's what I was hoping to do, depending on the scope and scale. But I can make some changes here and have an additional section of additional things we talked about this evening.
Okay, I'm good with that. I don't know how the other committee feels about that.
So just for clarification, there's 2 motions that they're looking for. One is saying that the report be received and that the committee's feedback be forwarded to the next council meeting for consideration. That's what this one's saying. The other one was saying just be received, I think, and that no further comment from the committee, with no further comment. So that's the other one. That's what they're suggesting anyway. So I'm just curious what Because it doesn't seem to drive what you're saying. It's going to come back to us first and then go off to council?
Through you, because your minutes will go to council, like on their correspondence agenda, they would just go through that way. But I have to write a report, so they have to have the report to receive the report. So that's why I'm saying otherwise it will get there in March. So we don't want that. So that's why I'm saying I'll just amend the report in front of us. So sorry, I didn't read those resolutions before they came here. But we'll just, if you're okay with it, I'll make those changes to the report. And if you have like specific wording, please just send like scratch lines out kind of thing of specific things that were offensive. I can take that out. That's not a problem. But yeah, then I can amend it for this week and then send it on through for the January 13th meeting with a further paragraph saying that we further discuss that at tonight's meeting.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, the 13th of council or this one here? Council, okay.
Yeah, I would probably say of the two resolutions, the second one, that the committee's feedback be forwarded to the next council meeting for consideration, which would be through her report. So.
Okay, then I can make that motion.
Okay.
Resolved that report PA 2443 Committee of Adjustment Process Improvements dated December 2nd, 2024 be received and that committee's feedback be incorporated into the report and forwarded to the next council meeting for consideration. How's that?
Perfect. Okay. And do we have a seconder on that motion? Dylan? Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye, say raise your hand. Opposed, if any? And that was passed. Okay, so that concludes our agenda for tonight. And the next meeting is January 21st, 2025. We're already there. Okay, good night, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Dylan. Merry Christmas.
All the